I rise today to urge the passage of my bill, H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act. My legislation will develop a curriculum on the real, brutal history of communism and provide states with the resources to implement it from K through the end of high school. This bill is crucial at this hour for the health of our nation. And why is that? Because America's youth has been brainwashed by media and academia for the last 30 years to believe that communism is good. What a travesty. What a horror. Ask my parents and my community if that is true. And I'm just going to bring you some proof. Nearly 40% of Gen Z and millennials think that the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx is better, and it's more of a defense of freedom than the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. Just picture that. Jefferson and Karl Marx. For 40% of Gen Z, Marx wins over Jefferson. What a problem we have as a country. The Declaration of Independence, as we all know, gave birth to the longest and most prosperous democracy in the world, ours, and that's why we have to preserve it through this bill. More than 1/3 of millennials approve of communism because they do not know what they're talking about or what this is all about. They don't know that communism has claimed over 100 million lives all over the world, making it the deadliest ideology known to mankind. I represent the people of the city of Miami, which is the heart of the Cuban exile community, refuge of hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans that have fled the horrors of this ideology that we would like, through this bill, to teach our kids not to fall into that trap. Let's just go to Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. That's a fact. It used to have the same GDP as Germany only 25 years ago. That's another fact. It has an inflation right now over 150%. The average Venezuelan has lost 15 pounds for lack of food, a country that has the largest oil reserves in the world. Something doesn't match. In the last 25 years, nearly 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country, a country that, as I said, has the largest reserves of oil, and it's full of resources, natural resources. Now let's go to Nicaragua. It was the breadbasket of Central America 25 years ago. Under communist Daniel Ortega, 28,000 properties have been expropriated, and Nicaraguans now are poorer than they were in the 70s. A couple of years ago, the last presidential contenders, 7 of them were put in jail because elections for communists is a problem. Therefore, you have to stifle them, and you put your political opponents in jail. That's the easiest part because there is no accountability. Now let's go to Cuba, where my parents come from. My parents fled in the 60s. 70% of Cubans today eat only once a day. The average Cuban makes $1 a day as income. In 1960, Cuba had a per capita income close to Italy or Argentina. Hunger, being hungry, is a very powerful motivator. Thousands and thousands of Cubans, I've known some of them, throw themselves into the ocean in the Florida Straits to get to Miami, facing the sharks, facing drowning, just to escape that communist inferno, and they expose their children to that. Just picture what that means. What do you got to be living in wherever you are in Cuba in order to throw yourself into the ocean and face the sharks in the dark? Today, the average Cuban has 1 hour of electricity. They have no food, no water, no medicine, no clothes, and they are desperate to come to the United States. An island that is 90 miles away from the United States, the most powerful economy in the world, and an island that could be Taiwan, Singapore, or Taiwan, or Hong Kong, but because of communism. In China, now let's leave this hemisphere, let's go to China. In China, up to 55 million people starved to death under Mao Zedong in the Great Leap Forward. Mao is one of the most evil communist leaders we all know, but you know that nearly half of our American kids do not even know who Mao Zedong is. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge murdered 1 million people. Expired. In the USSR, 10 million people were sent to freeze to death.
I'd like to leave 1 minute.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Reserve.
Communists are in the business of power. It only takes one generation to believe their false promises, and we lose everything. So, we cannot misinform our children. Knowledge is powerful. Churchill said, study history, study history. The further backward you can look, the further forward you're likely to see. Communism only leads to destruction and misery. I urge support from my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. This bill has nothing to do with politics, Democrats. It has nothing to do with political parties. It has to do to preserve the institution and what we have created as a nation. So let's teach our children about the truth. Let's do not fall into the trap, and let's start from kindergarten teaching them, and then they will be able to make a knowledgeable decision when they go to the polling booths. So I urge support from my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Let's pass H.R. 5349, and I yield back the balance of my time.